Okay, so here I have a cup of quinoa in some water. I don't have a strainer or a colander at my house, so I'm just rinsing it in the pot. And then I'll drain this out with some skill and remeasure my 2 cups of water for my 1 cup of quinoa and get that onto the stove. Okay, so I got the oven on high, or the stove top on high, and I got my quinoa here with the water. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring this to a boil. Once this reaches a boil, we're gonna turn it down to a simmer and keep it at that simmer. And we're gonna keep this cooking much like you cook rice. You want the quinoa to absorb all the water. It'll take about 15 to 20 minutes. And you're gonna notice it's gonna give off a very nutty aroma. And that's good. That's really what you want, is that nutty aroma as it's cooking. And even as you're rinsing it, you're gonna get that nutty aroma. You can already see that it's starting to bubble. That quinoa is already starting to cook there. That's perfect. That's what you want to see. Okay, so let's start with the chickpeas. We're gonna cut this tin open, and then we're gonna leave a section of the tin still attached. So we've still got a section attached. Now I'm gonna go drain all this liquid out from inside. So here you'll notice inside you're gonna have all this liquid. That's what you want to drain out, and then you want to actually rinse all that to get all that starchy liquid off, because you don't want to add more liquid to your quinoa salad at the end. So you got your chickpeas in your bowl, you're ready to go there. Your quinoa's still boiling. So now let's work on getting your cucumber de-seeded and chopped, your pepper, and then we'll move on to the onion followed by the parsley, kind of working from the least amount of mess to the most amount of mess. Okay, so when you're doing your cucumber here, what you want to do is you want to chop off your ends. Now, I have a very large English cucumber. I'm probably not going to use most of it, but I'm going to start with a chunk of it, about half of it, see how much that looks like, and kind of go from there and gauge. The rest I'll just chop up for a snack for later. Don't need to take the skin off of the cucumber, but when you take the wrapping off, you want to make sure you still wash the outside, just because you don't know what's pesticides have been used on the product. So with the quinoa, I keep turning it down just so that it's just at that simmer. It's not at a full boil. Right now I've got it down to about a 4 on my stove top, and I'm just going to keep adjusting it as time goes on here until all that water is soaked up. Okay, so when I say de-seed it, I want you to open it, slice your cucumber the lengthwise, and see about those seeds. If there's a lot of seeds, it's just about taking, I've seen people use the back side of their spoon and just dragging it through, taking most of those seeds out, because once again, you want to not have as much liquid. So just taking this little amount of cucumber pulp out as possible, because you don't want to be losing majority of your seeds. I've seen videos where they say to cut it out, but when you do that, you lose so much of your cucumber, it's not even worth it at that point. So we're just gonna take that, and once again, I'm just using the back side of the spoon here. You could use the front side, you'd probably get a little bit more. So I just got that little amount of seed out. I'm actually gonna put that into a little, I'm just gonna put it onto a plate so that I can compost it later. Sorry. Okay, so now when you're doing your cucumber, you wanna make sure it is in bite-sized pieces. So I'm now gonna cut it lengthwise again down the cucumber, and then I'm just gonna chop it into bite-sized pieces, kind of like that big. You don't want it much bigger than that. Now, if you're finding those pieces are too big, feel free to cut those halves even into smaller chunks. Which, as I'm looking at it, I think is probably a good idea to make sure they're all about that smaller size. Okay, so I got those ones chopped a bit smaller. So I'm going to take my halves here, I'm going to half them again. making those into some quarters, and let's keep chopping. I got my cucumber diced in here with my chickpeas, and I've got my red pepper, and I'm gonna wash this up, take the seeds out, and I'll show you guys a good way of taking the seeds out that I like doing. So as I was washing that, I realized we've got the quinoa here with majority of that water already absorbed in. So this is what your quinoa is going to look like. It hasn't taken too long. Now, a trick that I like to do is to make this even more fluffier than it is. Take a fork and use a fork to drag it through, and it's just going to fluff your quinoa up here. So once you're satisfied that there is no liquid left in here, then you want to take this off the heat and you're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes. Okay, so we've cut it in half. You have your inside portion here. So all I do is I take my fingers and I pop that out by just pulling. I press on the green part and pull the rest of that membrane out. And so you just want to grab all that membrane, pull that all out. And now you have no seeds left and barely any membrane. And now it's ready to chop. So once again, you want it in those bite-sized pieces, not too big, and very similar to the size of your cucumber. Add that into your bowl. So this is now your red pepper added in. Now I think I'm going to do a little bit more red pepper with mine. But I'm going to wait until after I chop up some onion and get that onion in here. So I've got, I'm going to do about this much of the onion, so just under half of this onion. It's a pretty small onion. Alright, so even though the recipe calls for red onion, I'm going to use a white onion. It's what I have in the house, and kind of at this point in time, you're looking for what you have in the house. So I actually have a friend dropping off some garlic for me because I realized that I have no garlic and she has an abundance. So it's just kind of using what you've got. And even if you don't have garlic, if you have garlic powder, that works. But me living in a new house, I don't have necessarily all the ingredients. So we're just gonna chop this up. When you do your parsley, you want to make sure it's finely chopped, so you're going to constantly be going back and forth with it. You want it into small pieces. So I'm just going back and forth, chopping it like this. And I'm going to add this now into my salad. Now I'm going to make the dressing. And with the dressing, what we need is a 1/4 cup of olive oil. I've got 1/4 cup of oil. And then you need a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And then this recipe calls for a tablespoon of red wine vinegar and just a tablespoon of this.